Ladies and gentlemen, ATDF Everything in That Shelf presentation. You're now rocking with TDF Everything. Spoiled Rotten.
Spoiler alert.
Welcome back, everybody.
Hey.
It's me, Daniel,
And it's banned
on Spoiled Rotten.
in 2021 on that shelf.
Boom.
Yep.
Today you saw the title. We will be talking about Wonder Woman 1984. But, just like last time, we're back into the old formula as we're doing the new episodes, as in the episodes that actually get put out the next day. Let's start with what was it?
We're hitting
their
up a
plan,
lot of
the Warner Brother plan.
Yep.
Is it a good plan? What is the plan again?
So the plan right now is to have the Robert Pattinson Batman franchise running alongside a new, or I guess not new, but a continuation of the Batman that is Ben Affleck, with them claiming that, yes, confirming that, yes, they're going to recast Ben Affleck because he doesn't want in that role anymore, which is hugely confusing to me because, two Batman franchises running side by side, and of course Pattinson's franchise having so many shooting issues due to COVID, but also because he's been taking apparently like 50 takes per shot to get it right, and they're really pushing him like really far, and he's just exhausted or something like that, and all this kind of stuff. So the parallel Batman franchises. B, the recasting of Affleck, which I thought he was back in the saddle for since the Snyder Cut stuff. We'll talk about the Snyder Cut stuff in a little bit. But yeah, this is like muddled. What do you know about this? What are your thoughts or whatever?
Yeah, I guess it's they really want to produce stuff, right? Like it was like they want to do like 6 movies a year, 4 in theaters, 2 on streaming.
Yeah.
So I don't know, and I guess the idea is Michael Keaton is taking over in the Snyderverse.
Is he really?
That's the idea. Yeah, so Keaton. So the idea is The Flash, which is going to film in April.
Yeah.
Let's see, April of this year, is bringing back Ben Affleck, but also Michael Keaton. And Michael Keaton is the one that's going to go on and be more like a Nick Fury in Earth 1. And then Earth 2 is the Matt Reeves stuff, which they say will not be affected by Earth 1.
Yeah.
I'm sure they can do crossovers at some point, but it looks like that's the idea. That's the double Batman. So I don't know if they're like doing, I guess they are doing solo movies, but my assumption is it's more like Batman will be appearing in stuff in the same continuity as the Flash, Wonder Woman, and Aquaman. And then
if they did that, I'd be a little bit more okay with that version of Batman.
I don't know. I'm happy to see Michael Keaton get work.
I'm happy to see that for sure. But one thing is, unless this Justice League Batman ends up being the Batman, again, that doesn't kill, is a little bit more optimistic, less like paranoid and all that kind of stuff. Cool, sure. But like, I don't know. It's a weird kind of thing. I just don't think it's going to work out very, very well. I really don't.
We'll see. I don't like it seems like a mess over there, but yeah,
because I think all that's going to happen is Pattinson is going to get compared to Keaton, which is unfair. Keaton is going to get compared to Pattinson, which is unfair because they're both the franchises are doing what I suspect or hope to be 2 separate things, as opposed to one.
Yeah, they are doing 2 separate.
Singular Batman set in 2 separate settings. Like, that would be terrible to me.
No, it's 2 separate things.
Yeah, absolutely, it's 2 separate things. At least we hope. But it's just a bit of a mess. To me, I'm just like, okay, Does that mean this Justice League is really just going to set up Batman Beyond? Hopefully.
I think. Well, I guess that's what everyone wants, but I don't know what their plan is. They seem to be very reactive, so I guess it doesn't matter what their plans are.
Very much so.
Whatever people like, I guess, is what's going to happen.
Yeah, so that's the potential of what's coming for our future. We got potentially 2 Batman franchises. Now, as a Batman fan yourself, I mean, you must have thoughts on this.
Not really.
Really?
I don't like. I just don't care about what they're doing. I remember the day when they're like, oh, and Ava DuVernay is doing New Gods and Steven Spielberg's doing like Black Hawks, and I'm like, none of that seems like it's happening. So it doesn't really matter to me what they announce. It's more about what they actually put out.
That's fair. Okay, it does give us more Batman content to go.
Yeah, like I hope that it happens and then I can have an opinion, but at this point I'm just like, it seems like it does not matter what they say.
Yeah,
like,
because if the Keaton Batman in the Snyderverse, I'm still going to call it the Snyderverse because that's the only thing that makes sense.
Well, I mean, we're going to talk about it. I know there's no official name, but it is the Snyderverse.
Yeah.
There's clearly 2 factions happening.
Yep.
There's the like AT&T controlled stuff, which I think is what brought back Snyderverse, and then there's like the actual like Warner Brothers people, which are doing like they're trying to push the Matt Reeves stuff.
Correct. Yay! So
there's that. Yeah, I guess that brings us into what's it called, Justice League.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, one of the biggest surprises. I guess this isn't really a surprise, but there's now rumors of the Justice League Snyder Cut getting a theatrical release.
I think that was always in the plans.
You think that was always in the cards?
Yeah, because they're putting so much money into this. Like they probably think like we should have a chance of exhibiting this not just on HBO Max, because that's the other thing is HBO Max is only in the States, so it's
you're asking the rest of the country. You're asking the rest of the world to pirate. You're asking. You have to be.
Mm-hmm. So you need to have something that's like, well, those were episodes of a TV show.
Yeah.
Watch the movie at some point. So yeah, I don't. I'm sure that will happen because otherwise, how else are people going to watch this thing they've put like $70 million into? I'm
just confused as how that's going to work out. You know, we got 4 episodes. We're assuming an hour each episode, or 4 chapters, however you want it, that terminology, tying into one grand epic movie. So the theatrical release, to my expectation or wish, is I'm really hoping. I miss theaters a lot, but no way, shape, or form do I want to sit in a theater for 4 hours straight. Even if it's safe to do so. I barely survived Lord of the Rings, Return of the King. I don't think I'm going to be able to do that for a Snyder Cut. But so genuinely, and then like to me, is just like, is this going to be a situation where it's like, okay, theatrical release comes out first, and then we get the HBO Max, and the HBO Max is registered or like called the director's cut or something like that, and this is the theatrical cut of the Snyder League. I mean, that might be interesting if it cuts it down to like, instead of 4 hours down to like 3, maybe.
Yeah,
I don't know.
I'm sure there will be cuts.
Yeah, I certainly don't want there to be part 1 theatrical release, and then HBO Max to do the 2 chapters, and then wait for the theatrical release a year later to do that. I would hate that for sure.
Yeah, that wouldn't be good. But who knows what the story is? I do know that they did bring back Jared Leto, and he is helping the Justice League steal a mother box.
Yes. Yeah, rough.
I don't know. I think it's quite clear. I'm not a fan of what Zack Snyder's ideas are.
Yeah.
But I'll watch it. It's just more like
we'll watch it.
It's new content. I would like to see that, but I don't have any feeling of like, oh, this will be great. I also realized Gal Gadot isn't actually filming anything new for it.
Correct.
So that's interesting. They must have. I mean, I feel like we knew that. Like it was clear from the trailers before Joss Whedon took over that it was looking like, oh, Wonder Woman's like the lead in this movie, and
Yeah.
then that was not the case when the movie came out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I mean, cool if they've got the footage to support that. But it seemed because I remember being like, oh, everyone's back. Nope, not everybody. Gal Gadot did not show up.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's supposed to come out in March or something. I don't know, but again, I don't know what the timeline is for the rest of the world to see it. I know what it looks like for HBO Max people,
Right.
Which is literally no one but the States.
Yeah.
So we'll see how that works out for them.
Silly.
I think they were happy with the way Wonder Woman turned out, but that also is because everyone else could just pay $30 to see it.
Yeah, correct.
Whereas I don't know if you can do that for a TV show. I mean, people do it. People pay Apple all the time to watch seasons of shows, but it's going to be hard to have this big event that like even have a staggered thing like that.
Yeah. Yeah. So just looking up this really quickly, just a fact check. As of today, it does say that it is scheduled to be released on March 2021 on HBO Max. There's also another note here that says it's supposed to be released initially as a 4-part miniseries, followed by a version that combines them all into a single film.
Right.
So to me, that means we're going to get the HBO, like the distribution method is already set in stone. It means that we're going to get the 4 episodes, I guess, weekly on HBO Max.
Is weekly.
It's going to annoy me. And then they're going to release like the single film cut together in the theater, so that we're not going to be able to get like that nice sit through. We're going to have like that skip the next episode nonsense. Or unless someone, Topher Grace, might just edit it together in his spare time, just like he did with the prequel series.
Yeah, I mean, that would never be out for public consumption.
Oh, it would never be out for public consumption, but it's like, we'll just hear about it and be like, ooh, let's talk about this and speculate wildly. But that'll be cool.
Yeah.
So March, we're going to have some new content to talk about. A lot of new content to talk about, because that's going to be really exciting. But either way, there is more news that is coming out of the Justice League, the Snyder Cut stuff, involving Cyborg himself, Ray Fisher.
Yeah. Well, I mean, this is what I was alluding to, the whole, like, it looks like there's 2 factions within Warner Brothers, which is the people that are down for Snyderverse stuff and the people that are not. And I don't know. I don't know what Walter Hamada is down for, but I did hear some not so great things about him beforehand in terms of his hiring processes for girlfriends and stuff. But then, it seems like Ray Fisher is like, this guy tried to bury my investigation, and he's not great either. Yep. So, I mean, not that we really needed him to say it out loud, but obviously he's not going to be in anything anymore that is like new. Like, there's not going to be a Ray Fisher Cyborg movie.
No,
I don't think. No.
And
well,
like Walter Hamada, Fisher in his tweet says, "I will not participate in any production associated with him." I don't think that was ever going to be the case going forward. I don't think they were ever going to amicably work together. I don't think this was going to be like a Megan Fox, Michael Bay situation where, they reunited on TMNT or whatever it is, and that was a semi-big deal, semi-not. I think this is just a situation where this divorce is very, very ugly, public, and it's just Fisher is he's choosing the sword that he's going out on.
I think it's a good one. I don't really understand why people are like, why didn't he say something earlier? I'm like, what does it matter? Like, he's saying it now, and as you can see, it's not gonna like help him. This doesn't.
And people that say stuff like that genuinely don't understand the situation that he's bound into. I mean, you got to think about the fact that Ray Fisher, being an actor in a very, very, very public tentpole movie.
It's his first movie because he was a stage person before this.
Yeah, he's stage. He's his first thing, and he had this experience, which is traumatic. It's unacceptable. all these kind of things. But also, it's just like he has the strength and like to be encouraged to be like, no, publicly, like this is wrong. Like,
yeah.
but
I guess we should say if anyone's listening to this and hasn't heard, because we haven't named what the actual investigation was.
Right.
This was an investigation into Joss Whedon,
Yes.
And Jeff Johns and John Berg as three people who made the reshoots of Justice League very uncomfortable. Those are the allegations. We don't know what they found, but it does look like Joss Whedon isn't going to be working there anymore, and Jeff Johns has had his name removed from. Well, he hasn't had his name removed from the movie we're about to talk about, but they found something. So
there's proof of something. We know that.
Yeah, and there's the stories we heard, and it was just we didn't talk about this because at the time we weren't going to put out episodes in a timely manner. But my feeling was always like, I hear people like there's this podcaster Jay Washington who's in the business, so what do I know? But he's just like, you don't understand. Like when you get paid to make these movies, you get paid to make the movie the studio wants. So that's the way it was always going to be. I'm like, that's doesn't seem like that was the case. It seems like Zack Snyder had an idea and he didn't get to do it. Yep. And then people were shitty when they came in and changed things. Like, that's what working on a set is like. I'm like, I get that you're fine and you have like tough skin because you've probably been told no a lot, but like it is a shit thing to do as Joss Whedon, and he's done it before. I remember when he did Avengers Age of Ultron, and it was Avengers, the first one, and he was so proud of himself for being like, I got rid of the triangle. That means nothing to me. I'm bringing back the circle. I'm like, you don't have to shit on people's work. Just we see you brought back the circle on Iron Man's chest. Like, you don't have to talk shit about it in interviews. And he talks shit about Zach Penn. Again, he made things probably better, but don't talk shit while you're doing it. Let your work speak for itself. And it seems like he was doing exactly the same thing in Justice League. Yeah. And people make it seem like, oh, poor Zack Snyder. I'm like, what? He wasn't just talking shit about Zack Snyder when he talks shit about what was filmed beforehand. You're talking shit to all the crew members that worked on it, all the people that put in the hours to like finalize things. Like it's more than the rich people, the faces people think about. It's people's livelihood that you're just shitting on and talking shit about. And to say nothing about the awkward pratfall where Flash falls into Wonder Woman's breasts, and Gal Gadot was like, nope, don't want to do that. And then he's like, bring in her stunt double, let's do it anyway. I'm like, I don't know, man. Like it doesn't sound like a great time working with him.
And it's also like, consider the idea that Ray Fisher was cast under Snyder. Mm-hmm. Ray Fisher's role is very pivotal in this. Cyborg is like the heart of the Justice League in many, many ways. Like
should have been,
was so important in this whole thing. He was the new character. We needed him established. He's a cool character. He like does so many great, amazing things. And he was fundamentally, Snyder pitched him, this is what I want to do with the character. And Ray Fisher and Snyder had a thing going on. Now you have Joss Whedon coming in to be like, no, scrap all that. The stuff that you originally signed on for, we're doing completely separate things as your first movie, where creatively you're like, if this doesn't work out for me, the chances of me being casted in something else is very, very low. Just because of that, right? You're associated with that. Like, it's kind of like Natalie Portman being cast in Star Wars, the prequels. People didn't want to work with her for a long time after that, just because of that association and that kind of thing, right? So he had the foresight.
The only reason I think that's different is that Natalie Portman had a career before that, and maybe she had stink on her. You're talking about the
like his first shot.
Yeah, his first shot at something, and to be stained with that. Yeah, there's a desperation about like, I need this to work out.
Yes, absolutely.
More than, and don't get me wrong, if you're an actor, every role could be your last role. I understand that, but it's like, I feel like for a Natalie Portman, you could be like, I mean, I probably have friends in the industry that will help me out. and I might
Yes.
not, like I.
Yeah.
Ray Fisher doesn't look like he has many friends at this point.
No,
So, yeah.
no friends with influence to be able to help him out. And I genuinely hope that's not the case. I hope that he gets cast in more things. He's
well,
like
he was
John
in True
Boyega.
Detective. He was good in that.
Yeah, I hope he ends up being like John Boyega in the sense where he is publicly speaking out about these kind of things and does get some sort of support. But of course, we don't know what's going to happen, right? This is just an ugly situation. I really hope Ray Fisher gets more work in the future because we haven't.
Yeah.
I want to see more of him, and I think he's got a lot.
I think he's really good.
Yeah, and I think he's got great talent. I just think he's been put in a really shitty situation, and no one should have to deal with the stuff that he's been put through, for sure. No one.
And I'm glad that he's saying something. Like he's got. I feel like everyone's always like, like. I mean, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't, right? Like you're either all you do is just act and you never stick up for anything, or you should shut up and just stick to acting. And it's like, I would rather someone talk about something they believe in. In this case, especially, like if you want to talk about we shouldn't take vaccinations, like I wouldn't tell you to shut up and just act, but also like maybe I just won't be listening to you anymore. But if you want to talk about accountability on set and not lightening black characters' skin and making a work environment where people don't feel bullied or like talked down to, that's fine. Because the same people that are like, oh, what's Ray Fisher so mad about are the same people that are like, Tom Cruise shouldn't yell at the people who are breaking COVID protocol.
Disagree, man. I love that rant.
I'm saying is the same people that are talking shit about Ray Fisher and telling him to
what I
suck it
meant
up.
is I disagree with those people.
Yeah, they're idiots. Those people are idiots.
They're idiots. I'm like, no. Tom Cruise is absolutely right.
Yes,
the whole
exactly.
is watching that production to set the new standard for how to do this safely, so that people.
If you're gonna bully people, have it be for something like, hey, let's save lives and
be
people's jobs.
Objectively right, because the thing is, like him going off on those two crew members, 100%, he was absolutely correct about that. Doing that, he like the stakes are so high, like don't screw around right now. It's just like he's absolutely right. So like I gained so much respect for Tom Cruise after that rant.
Yeah, that was my thing, is that like I see that it's and I don't get it, and I don't get the whole like, I don't know what Ray Fisher's talking about, blah blah. It's like you're upset that he wants to be treated fairly and like is speaking out for other people as well, not just himself.
Yeah, and that's the reality of it, right? He is doing the work that not a lot of people can do or are willing to do or have the ability to do it to help.
Well, he's got a platform now, and
he's continuing that movement of let's make everything better in Hollywood, right? He's continuing that movement in a very important way that doesn't actually distract from the Me Too stuff that is fundamentally important. He's like, no, this is, it's crazy what he's doing, and he's doing such a good job of it. He really, really is. And I cannot stand the people that right now is like, what is he talking about? He's paid millions of dollars for this. And I'm like, listen, that doesn't mean that you can't
I don't think he was paid millions of dollars too either. Like,
and don't put a
lot of
on
those people
self-respect. Like, nobody should be able to put don't put a price on someone's self-respect. Like, that's ridiculous to me. Absolutely ridiculous. We are all humans at the end of the day and deserve to be treated as such. He didn't get treated that way, and he's being vocal about it so that other people don't have to be treated the same way that he did.
It's also about a person. I mean, the big name here is Joss Whedon, because I don't know how many people know Jeff Johns or John Berg. But like, it's about a person who we already know had issues on his big thing, Buffy, where women were talking about, or not even just women, but like people talking about, well, I guess if you don't get a scene that episode, it's because you didn't make him feel good about himself, or like, like it's not like they're like, oh, Joss Whedon has never had any issues before. It's like, no, like we already know that like way back when he was doing Buffy, there was issues. So is it really that weird that he still has issues going forward?
Especially with what his wife came out saying about him and all that kind of stuff. And, it's just, don't be surprised. I mean,
speaking about being surprised, let's talk about Wonder Woman.
Yeah, Wonder Woman
1984.
1984.
Yeah, that's the one. That's what I meant. Oh boy. So as I told you right away, I saw, oh, Jeff Johns has a writing credit on this.
Yeah, weird, right? Weird.
I don't think this will be one of my favorites, and I was not wrong.
Yeah.
Spoiler alert: this was not the best. I've had a lot of time with this because I watched it Christmas Day, and I haven't seen it since.
Mm-hmm.
I initially was just like, wow, that was really underwhelming, which I think you said as well.
Yes.
I felt like, wow, they didn't use their cast effectively. I don't think. And then I really got fixated on it. It was a truly such a mistake to bring Steve Trevor back.
Yes. Oh my God. The way they did it.
Oh boy, what a fucking swing and a miss. The problem with it is that, like, in context, I get that if you're just watching the movies, you could think like, oh, he means a lot to her. But like, in context, she lived however long without knowing him. Then she knew him for maybe a couple months, maybe.
Yep.
Then he died.
Yep.
And she lived decades, like what, like 7 decades, 6 decades without him.
Yep.
And she's still like, oh, I need him back. It's the one thing I wish for, without hesitation. That's what I wish for. And then they do that fucked up thing where it's like, it's just him in someone else's body.
Yep.
And I was like, why would you complicate it like that?
So unethical.
Just bring him back.
Immoral. So creepy. It was a invasion.
Just bring him back. That, like, it's a wish. Like, they already, and then we get to the thing that I'm now realizing is even more fucked up, which is he goes to the oil person. I think it was Egypt the first time. And then he's like, I want all the heathens out of my country. Like, oh my fucking God. Are you kidding me? Like, and then a wall just appears out of nowhere. I'm like, so you can make a wall appear, but you can't just bring back Steve Trevor. Don't get me wrong. I love Chris Pine. He's someone who stands up for the right things.
Yes.
He is a very great person from what I can see. I love him in things. It was nice to see him. Of all the people that they had in the cast, he definitely got to do his thing. Mm-hmm. I don't think many other people got to do their thing in this.
Nope.
But he's the source of a lot of problems with this movie.
His character is so problematic in this. It's entirely problematic.
It's a big problem that he's back for character growth, for the weird consent stuff, but also I'm realizing now at the helm of this movie is Patty Jenkins, who last episode we talked about her dad and the war, and I'm like, okay, so there might be some outdated thoughts on world politics coming from Patty Jenkins there.
Sure.
And then you got someone who was in the Israeli army as your Wonder Woman, also making decisions, who I don't remember the quotes exactly, so I'm not going to get into them. You can look it up. If you follow Lexi Alexander on Twitter, she's got all the threads of, because Lexi Alexander is a Muslim American. Well, she's German Muslim and an American thing. She did Punisher Warzone. Great director in that sense, but like, she has her opinions on the movie as it relates to how Arabic people and Muslim people in particular are positioned.
Very, very poorly.
So, I mean, there's not a great history for Gal Gadot. I am willing to believe that maybe recent event or her time now in Hollywood has changed her opinions on some of the things she said.
Are you talking about Gal?
Gal.
Or Patty. Okay, Gal. Okay.
Gal has said some fucked up things. But
yes.
So I don't know. I mean, I'm always interested when people get on her case about that Imagine video, but don't get on her case about what she said about like actual people dying. And
I know what you mean. Why is it that people remember that so much?
I'm just like, all right, like she wanted to make people happy, and you're shitting on her, okay? But then she like, oh, she's so hot, she's so good as Wonder Woman. Did you hear what she said about people dying in Palestine? You know, maybe that's what you take her to task for, not doing a stupid video with her friends. But anyway, so there's a lot of things, if we don't even look at the storytelling, that is wrong. I'm going to stick to the storytelling. For this, I am acknowledging and saying, yes, that is a big reason that awkward divide between Israeli Palestine politics, and how that you extrapolate that to Muslim and Jewish and American politics.
Yep.
All of that is fucked. If you don't like the movie because of all of that is very valid. And if we were going to talk about that, I don't even think there's a point in talking about the movie. It's a bigger discussion about Hollywood's issue with
that topic's too big.
But
Just know that
I would-
we have issues about it. Just know that I don't know enough about that conflict to have a certain whatever. I just know that people are pissed off, and I felt the same way. I'm like, hey, this paints a certain group of people very poorly that don't like that. It really, really upset me.
Mhm.
Not okay.
So all of that is bad.
Yeah, and then
I would.
on top of everything, you're right. The Steve Trevor thing was like one of the most horrific things, and like morally questionable. No, morally wrong. Not even morally unambiguous.
It's morally wrong, and it didn't need to be.
Yes, correct. And
They
here's
could
the
have just
thing.
made it that he came back to life.
Yeah, I mean, just bring this. Like, because the thing is, the stone was already like we make wishes come true. So you could have been like, okay, that was the reason why he's completely back. You didn't need to like take a single guy and just give him a meat puppet role for about 2 weeks or a week of his life, and then have him not remember any of it or whatever. Like, what the hell is all that about? To me, I'm just like, hey, during a pandemic when a lot of single people are really bearing the brunt of things, that was a shitty message, man. That really sucked.
I think all that is shit. That's no good. I think
But you're right. There's no real point on dwelling on that because
It's just that's not what we do on this show. And if you don't like that, that's fair. I accept. But I would like to engage on it. Engage this movie as we engage most movies, which
yes,
is
of course.
the story beats and how we felt about that. I did want to say up top, yes, all of those things are reasons not to like the movie.
Correct.
So yeah, that is perfectly fine, and I agree with it all. There is nothing where I'm like, but you know, it's like, no, I agree. All that is shit. That's all bad.
Yep.
So yeah, the movie itself, from the beginning, like I feel like people say they like that mall scene, and I was like, oh, the trailer made it look so much more fun and energetic. I was like, oh, like I really like the fight scenes in Wonder Woman, like from 1917. Fuck, sorry, 2017. That movie.
The first.
I love the way she fought in that, and then this movie, I'm like, she never does it again. Like it's never that good.
Takes a huge step back. There was so much like, and this is what I realized going into it. Like in that mall fight scene, I'm like, why are there so many weird aerial movements going on right now? She's like with the lasso of truth, like doing all these weird things that, yes, of course, we're not talking about physics here because this is a superhero movie, but it just looks weird.
It looks weird.
Moving around and the fight scenes, and you're right, absolutely. One of the biggest things that I was looking forward to in this was amazing fight scenes. And what I didn't get through the story element itself, you're losing your powers, that's what you hold, like, cool, fair enough. But the beginning scene itself was so weirdly done that I'm like, what? Like,
I think
the other
problem I had is we've been doing the rewatch, and I was like, oh, they're trying to do the Superman movies. I get it. I feel like they paid respect to those movies way better in the first Wonder Woman movie. Like the moment where she stops the bullet from hitting Steve Trevor just like he did, and then like there's ways to do that without being like, let's just make another movie like that. That's kind of what I didn't like about Superman Returns is like that slavish being like, we have to make it like those movies, and I'm like, like that time is done. I mean, unless what you're saying is this movie is for older people who like that, but it is like, I don't think we're there. Like I think this is a step back visually as well. Like it's and like the way people deliver their lines and stuff. I was just like, I get it. I saw we've rewatched those movies. I get it. That is what you're trying. She, like Patty Jenkins said in her interview on Happy, Sad, Confused, she was trying to make like basically a movie that would have happened in between Superman 2 and Superman 3, so that it would feel right at home there.
Sure.
And I'm like, okay. I guess like that
I-
first bit feels like that. Yeah, the first
It-
section of the movie feels like that. I don't know if that's a plus
not.
though. Like
Yeah,
you achieved it, but I don't know if that helped your movie.
first of all, I didn't get the decision why to do that. Because to me, I'm just like, well, why would you do that between Superman 1, Superman 2 when this is a separate
No, not between 1 and 2. It's between 2 and 3, which
2 and 3?
would put you in
Either way.
84. That
Sure.
would
Either
it
way.
is the right time.
Sure. Either way, but even between those two periods, why are we committing to that when we know it's a completely separate universe? We have a separate Superman altogether. That doesn't make sense. It's like, oh, you should be able to watch this between Superman 2 and 3. And it's like, well, why? It's not like there's.
Well, I mean, it's something you said you were excited about, and I never really understood, which is their ability to not have continuity. But sometimes it's so like, to your point, this is what you get when they're like, oh, it's connected, but there's not. We don't have to worry about continuity anymore.
I'm realizing the error of my ways for sure.
Yeah.
This is me.
This is why I never really understood why people were excited about that. It's like,
no, I'm definitely. This is me definitely being like, no, I was wrong. This is so weird. I don't like it because the thing with me with the mall scene is we obviously right now 80s is trending in any different way, right? And that's cool. It's the most positive era. All this kind of stuff. Whatever. What it represented, it was fun. Whatever, the fashion was goofy. Whatever. But the biggest thing about that mall scene, to me, I'm like, was that a good scene, or was it overly campy, or was that genuinely was that the 80s? I cannot tell anymore because, like, I hear from people like, yeah, that was what the 80s was like. I'm like, you're as old as I am. Like, you can't tell me that. It's a weird thing. Like, was that campy? Was that ridiculous? Or was it accurate? I can't tell.
To me, I don't care if it's relevant or whatever, or if it's the same. I think it's a step back. It's not great, but again, it's what they were saying. Like, oh, it's not a sequel; it's just another story. So then that brings me to the other problem of like, okay, so it's the 80s. You could have been doing Cold War stuff. You could have had it so that like, she's not just like telling people, oh, don't tell anyone about this. It could have been that you have her going in and doing covert missions because that would have happened during the Cold War where it's like, oh, but I'm like, oh, you just got rid of that so that you could keep Muslims the villain of this, or not even the villain, but like the out and out bad guys. So it's like, like it seems like this had an opportunity to be even more relevant to today by having Russian villains. And like the other thing is I have had time to sit with the Pedro Pascal performance, and I was like, oh yeah, it's a bad idea to make him be a businessman. He should have been a religious leader. Like he should have been a guy that had a cult. I
agree. He should have been like the Joel Osteen of whatever, like those evangelical like church people. Like it should have been. I the whole time I'm like, business. Oh my! The only thing,
because he's bad at business. Like everyone's like, oh, he's like Donald Trump. Like Donald Trump was never that like openly bad at business. Like he is bad at business, but like if Donald Trump worked the way that guy worked, no one would be like, oh, he's good. He should be the president. Because that guy was like, he didn't even have an office. Like he had space and he had one person working for him, and he was so desperate all the time.
Yeah,
it's just like, oh,
he's a good analogy for Trump in the sense where he's like, he is
a good analogy for Trump for what we know now. He's not a good like he doesn't work as what Trump was then.
Yeah, that's correct. Back in the
so you can't have it both ways. You can't have this meta commentary.
Yeah, absolutely, you're right.
But then be like, no, we're living in the 80s. This is just the 80s. Like, well, you tried to do that. I mean, I don't think they tried to. Gal Gadot said they weren't trying to do Trump, and I agree with that. They weren't. Like, if you can attach it to him, yes. But what he was doing was this desperate person that wanted power. And again, yes, in a meta text way, we know that Trump is desperate. But that's not what he exudes. He's not like, everything he does is, I know what I'm doing. And you can see that he doesn't, but it's never to the point of what Pedro Pascal's doing in this movie.
Because the thing with Pedro Pascal's character in this movie, Trump can still successfully convince lots of people that he's still right. In this movie, I don't think he's successfully convinced anyone that he's right beyond the first interaction of like, oh, this is who I am. This is why.
Yeah,
you
like you know me from TV, and then
he's
people
like,
are
I
excited.
make you feel good with that one thing, and then other than that, there's nothing else beyond that, right? You see that in the first scene where like one of the investors comes and he's like, oh, it's dry. I knew for a while, and he has that whole conversation where he breaks down, basically tells him like, yeah, honestly, I knew this for a while, but we need more investors. The oil's there. We got to find it and all this kind of stuff. I genuinely agree. I wish this was more. He was some sort of religious leader, because if he was a religious leader, to me, it's so much more powerful, that analogy.
Because then you
especially
can have like just the control over people. Because if he's a businessman, I'm like, it seems like he lost sight of the whole like wanting to be good at business at a certain point. Like, because the movie is constantly asking like, what do you want? He's like, why not more? And I'm like, but more for what? Like, I don't like. I get that. Yes, greed would just have him be like, I just want more. But like, as an actual villain, I don't know what is actually driving him. If you're just saying it's just more, then that's kind of a shit villain. Like, he just wants more. If he was just like, no, I need to control people, and I need, like, that feels like way more in line with what they did in the movie.
Right.
Which is,
so because my thing with Maxwell Lord is like, I like to get behind the motivations behind a lot of villains, right? I like to understand where they're coming from. I like to understand that gray nature of how they rationalize things. With him, there was no gray nature. There was no deeper cause. It seemed like to me, it was just greed and selfishness. It was just like, I want more because I want more. That's it. And I don't know if that was, because that was the 80s, right? It was like ridiculous, like get more capitalism at its very finest, all those kind of things.
Yeah, it's Wall Street, like, which he said that was who he was basing it off of, with Gordon Gekko, which makes more sense to me. Yeah,
absolutely, it makes a lot of sense. So to me, it's just like that element doesn't really come through because of the whole like, where is his motivation? What does he want more to? Does he want to create the world as his image? Does he want to run the world? Like, what does he want? I don't even know. He's just like, to me, it's just like, the one thing about, and this was a weird thing, with the son, the relationship with Maxwell Lord.
Yeah, that was also something they needed to get rid of, because it didn't.
That is something that I really desperately like. I looked at the kid and like, honestly, I honestly asked him, like, is anyone convinced that this Asian kid is Maxwell Lord's son? This fully Asian kid, not a mixed race kid.
I don't know if he's not mixed race, because his last name is not an Asian last name. It is
but that could be one of those
he
things.
Could be Filipino, but I would say that we don't know.
Who is convinced that is Maxwell Lord's kid? Like,
I mean, to your point, yes, the movie created an issue that it didn't need to, but with that casting. But am I mad that an Asian kid got the role? No, I'm not mad. I just think that
right. I just don't believe it.
I mean, if it's an adopted kid, it actually makes more sense to me.
I would love that if he said adopted. At any given point, I would love if the dialogue was to say adopted son. I would love that.
And we don't know like who the mom is.
We don't know who the mom is. But what I'm saying is,
so yes, you're right. It takes you out, and because most people saw this at home, I immediately went to my phone to look that kid up.
Right.
And
exactly.
Stopped watching the movie because I'm like, what? That's his son.
What?
But then I saw the last name and I was like, all right. I mean, it is a possibility.
And to me, I'm just like, well, is that like the Jewish name where you give yourself like stage names for Hollywood instead of like using your real?
I mean, I think reality is based on the last name. He could be Filipino. That doesn't make that, but like, I had the same thing with when I was watching The Good Place, and I feel like his real name is Manny Jacinto, and now I can't for the life of me remember his name on the show. But he plays the monk, and I was like, that guy's not Chinese. Like, oh, he's Philippines, flat out Filipino. Okay, fair enough.
Okay, that guy.
But like that part, I don't feel I have any kind of room to be like, oh, I don't know, they should have cast someone better. Like, I understand where you're coming from, but for me, I'm just like, I don't know, because I see the last name, I can be like, he could be Filipino, and I don't know what happens if you have a Filipino mom and I can't remember what Pedro Pascal is, the father. I don't know.
I mean, Pedro Pascal is, he's Latin American.
Yeah, but correct? I don't know if he's from Mexico. I don't know if he's from Guatemala. I don't know.
Right. But either way, like a mixed race.
He's Chilean. He is Chilean. But yeah,
Right.
The point is, it is a thing where you're like, oh,
It
that's
takes
pulling. It takes you out of it, or it took me out of it because I'm like, that's his son, and there's no effort to humanize him at all by like, this is his mom, this is how he like. It's just kind of like because he makes a wish, but I don't even really remember what the wish was. Was it that he wanted to be as good as his dad?
He wanted his dad to feel better or something like. I don't know, but it was one of those.
But it's
things
weird
where,
because like whatever his wishes, it seems to not factor into the movie.
yeah,
And then they make a point of showing him wish again when I know it's supposed to be you only get one wish, but Cheetah got more than one wish. And I got to imagine that people.
No, like their loophole was it like he was convincing other people to do the wish for Cheetah, right? Cheetah was like,
no, she flat out says, I want this, and then he gave it to her. He said, I can do this for you.
So you know what the weird thing to me is, like the Dreamstone, like only getting one wish. I don't know if that technicality was because the first wish was done with the Dreamstone, and the Dreamstone changed forms, so technically there was a new Dreamstone. I don't know.
All I'll say is it doesn't matter. It's a complication the movie made that didn't need to have by saying you only get one. I get why they would say you only get one, but like they turn around and go like she gets more than one, and I get it. It's because he's like, well, you're working for me now. I'll give you another one.
Right.
But then they do this thing where like they show the kid being like, Dad, I wish you would come home. I wish you would come home. I'm like, it's a weird thing to put in the movie, knowing that it won't matter what his wish is, but they keep coming back to it, and I'm like, so are they saying that they can?
The first wish actually the kid had was more like, I wish you felt better or something like that, and he
said
like,
something about I want the goodness of my dad, and then he goes, no, what are you doing? After that, he's like, oh, I just wish you felt better. But I think his wish was, I want to be like you. If you're saying you're good, I want to be like you. But like that doesn't factor into the movie. Like it's not like a thing that happens later that you're like, oh, see, he's just as greedy as his dad. But so there's the wish stuff is weird, not really done well. And then they said it's a monkey paw thing, because I was thinking before they said that if Minerva, what's her name, Barbara, Cheetah, if she's wishing to be like Wonder Woman, maybe that's why Wonder Woman's losing her powers. And I thought, oh, that's a really interesting.
That's what I thought at first. I thought, oh, she was wishing.
And then I was like, oh no, she just is losing her powers from. It's just further disconnecting the villains from the hero. I was like, oh,
it really is, because it's like, well, I guess the stone takes the thing that you hold most dear and all that kind of stuff, but like, to be perfectly honest, like the Diana wish is probably one of the weirdest wishes, because I don't know if she held her powers very, very dear. But what I do know is that she held Steve Trevor very, very dear. So to me, like with the monkey paw aspect of the stone, would it be like, here's Steve Trevor, he's back, but he also has cancer now. You know what I mean? Like,
I thought that's where they're going. He was going to come back and be evil. But
I thought he was. Like something there that would have been kind of interesting to me. But it's just like. Well,
I mean, it would be interesting, because then I don't think you need this. I think it was a terrible plot point. But if this movie is how Wonder Woman learned to get over Steve Trevor, I'm sure I'm going to call him Steve Rogers like a million times during this. But like, if the movie is how she learned to get over him, maybe you do have to like visualize that in a battle, and like she learns to just be like, fight that. Because I see it as a demon if you're still holding on to that guy. But like,
100%.
Maybe that is how you have to visualize it if you're insisting on bringing back Chris Pine, is that he is the villain. Like that wish led to Steve Trevor being like, you have him back, but he's not the way you wanted him to be. But like, instead it's just him like pulling her aside and being like, hey, just unwish me. Come on, do it.
Yeah. Say goodbye.
Hey, what about this? What about this? Come on. Just stop. Stop wanting me. And she's like, oh, okay, I renounce my wish. And I'm like, this is my fault. I didn't realize
the renouncing the wish thing is so stupid to me.
I didn't realize you could renounce your wish.
And to me, I'm just like, why does it happen so well? Like the idea of like, if this wish stone was created by the god of lies or whatever, basically the Amazonian version of Loki. Let's just say that.
Well, it's Greek. They're all supposed to be Greek gods, which is another
Right.
thing that I'll
Yeah.
bring up later. But like, yeah.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah. Okay. So the Greek gods. They're trying to do. Oh God, it's just such a mess here.
Mhm.
Why would that god that created the stone be like, yeah, but okay, we'll give people a chance to take their wish back? Like, I can't.
Especially since once you realize what you're losing, like, why would you ever have that loophole of like, oh, just say you don't want it anymore,
Yeah,
and
it's
then
stupid.
your life will go back. And it's like
It's
with
stupid.
no
It's,
repercussions.
honestly, I thought the renouncing of the wish was you have to physically give up what you wished for. So I thought Diana had to kill Steve. And to me, I was like, holy crap, that would have been cool. Like, he's like, no, I renounced the wish. Stab him, he dies, returns back to the other guy, and being like, and now Diana has to carry around the guilt of like, oh, I killed an innocent man or whatever. That would
Yeah,
have
I
been
forgot. Yeah, that's why they can't kill him or fight him, because we as the audience see him as Steve Rogers.
Yes.
She sees him as Steve Rogers. Literally, no one else sees him as Steve Rogers.
no. Everyone sees him
As
as
the guy.
credited the handsome man,
yeah.
which is
That's so stupid. Anyway,
It's so
I don't
dumb.
like that. I think that's stupid.
I hate
Maybe
everyone.
people like that. I shouldn't say it's stupid.
I think
Doesn't work for me.
I think what they were more convinced about doing was like, oh, okay, here's a way to bring Steve Trevor back in a way that kind of makes sense, but we didn't bother to explore the ethics of it in a world where it doesn't
It doesn't
even
make sense. There's no way that
doesn't
makes sense. We'll just put him in someone else's body, and then she sees him. Just bring him back. Who cares? Like, you think
bring him back. I agree. Just bring him
if
back.
I saw someone today that looked exactly like someone from World War I wouldn't be like, wait a minute, aren't you? Like, I'd just be like, oh wow, you look like that person. One, I don't
Yeah.
know the war that well, but I wouldn't be like, wait a minute, how are you back?
But also,
I don't give
the
a fuck.
thing is, like, there's genetics, people. Genetics look really, really weird. There are, like, people that look, like, identical to other people at, like, different stages of their life. It's such a weird thing. So it's
Mhm.
just, like, it is a possibility. Like, or the wish could have been, like, Steve Trevor's back, but he's a baby. And you got to wait for him to be 18.
I don't know. I just think it was bad to bring him back. That is the one big mistake that, especially since the movie starts with her, and I get it. It's all a setup so that you can be like, oh, and then she wears the gold suit at the end. But like, you start the movie back in Themyscira, and her wish isn't to like see her family again.
Yeah.
Like, her wish is, I want Steve Trevor back. I was just like, what? And it said that Warner Brothers asked her to cut one of those. I would have cut the first one then. If you are like, all of this is just a setup for the gold suit, which you still talk about throughout the movie,
Yes.
and show where it is, you don't need that beginning part.
Yeah. So that's the one thing. The studio
Because she
asked her
doesn't
to
care
cut-
about her family, obviously.
Yeah. The studio asked her to cut either the mall scene or the opening Olympics scene. And Patty Jenkins refused to cut either and kept them both in. And I personally think the studio was right to make that call of being like, you should cut one of these scenes.
Yeah. I mean, they were doing it because of like time. I don't care about how long the movie is. All I'm saying is it's this weird thing to be like, remind me of how cool Themyscira is, even though I didn't really like the visuals of it the way I liked it in the first Wonder Woman. It was still like, oh yeah, they're back. They brought back Robin Wright. Like, I'm so like, I really liked that stuff in the first movie.
Sure.
And it just reminds me like, oh shit, yeah, like she has been torn away from everyone she's known for most of her life. Well, debatable at that point if it's most of her life. I don't know like how old she was before we met her, but like that was a significant part of her life that she knew those people. And then for her to never even like acknowledge her mother or her aunt or the fact that she can't see them. All she talks about is just general mythology from where she comes from. So it talks about people as if that was a place she actually lived and didn't just study in a book.
Yeah, I agree.
Like, it's like this weird thing where I'm like, what? So
it definitely feels like she didn't miss home. And here's another thing I think is really, really dumb about this movie that I just thought about. The idea of like, okay, the Wish Stone just brings Steve Trevor back because you don't need this technicality where everyone doesn't recognize him when you have a character that was from like now you're putting 66 years after the first film, and this character is taking public jobs in like what you see where she ends up in Justice League or like Batman versus Superman. Like, she's not being a private person at all. She is being a person. She's living her life out in public. She's doing high profile stuff. She's going to parties. No part of her is
No, I don't think that's
that
true.
kind of
I
stuff.
think she went to that party in Batman versus Superman because that's her reintroduction to like the world. The
Sure, fair.
the
But
end of Wonder Woman is her like working at a job where you would never see her, and then people being like, "What did you do?" And she's like, "Oh, nothing. I stayed in." Like she is being a private. Like no, she's not holed up in her apartment, not talking to anyone, but she also isn't like out and about like that.
that's true.
She's not a public figure.
Yeah.
But Batman versus
But-
Superman is her reintroduction. But it is the problem we've talked about before, which is we already saw the ceiling for Wonder Woman.
Yes.
All of this, let's go back and tell stories, is going to have limited effect because we're like, well, we already know where she ends up.
I also think it's stupid that she would keep pictures of her at multiple points in time, like of herself in her own apartment. It's like, oh, here's a picture of me in World War One. Here's a picture of me doing a glam photo shoot, or like me just being silly. But there's obviously multiple pictures of her at multiple significant points in time. That Steve Trevor ranch thing is very, very confusing to me. Did she set up a ranch in his name? Was that his family's ranch? What did she say? Oh, I knew him, and I like, what the hell, man? Not like it's so much.
Where else would you put that stuff?
In the Batcave.
She doesn't have a Batcave.
People cannot find it. Not in the middle of your apartment.
She doesn't have a Batcave.
No, she might as well. I mean, they're really taking liberties and all this.
I mean,
kind of
why
stuff.
can't that apartment be her Batcave then? Like, it's not other people go there.
I want her. Yeah, that's true. I want her to have basically the idea of like her 66 years on life. I want there to be better proof that she had the ability to save and accumulate, amass kind of like technology over time to create a Wonder Woman cave. I don't know.
The point is that she doesn't she's doing it, but she doesn't want to be Wonder Woman. Like she's just like helping out because that's the right thing to do, but she's not like trying to be. It is what this universe has tried to set up, which is people were doing superhero shit before. It's just Superman made them come out into the open.
Right.
But like, yeah, all of that, sure. But like in this movie, there's no room for that. There's no room for like because someone made a good point. There's three like pretty well known, if you're into comedy, comedians in this. Kristen Wiig being the biggest one. Natasha Rothwell, who's the boss, and I can't remember the other guy, Rajiv something, who's the guy that like they meet for one moment. They kind of go to ask for help from him, and I'm just like, yeah, like they didn't give them a time to shine, I don't think. And I don't mean like let them be funny. Like if you hired them, there was obviously something you saw in them, and it can't be that fucking middle of the road shit you gave them to do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do think that Kristen Wiig was able to actually thread the needle of a woman who I guess lost her kindness. It's a quick one, but I do think she did the work ahead of time to be like, this is how nice she is and mild mannered, and then like she loses it. And I do think it's not a vocal performance, it is a physical one.
It's
she
very
physically does look different, so that's fine.
Yeah,
you don't need to be showy, but I still felt like we didn't have enough time with her. But like,
yeah,
if you're doing just like screen grabs, you can be like, all right, she did a good job herself. The movie doesn't give her a chance to do anything, but she did a good job of me being able to track this transition she goes through.
Yes.
But like I hear something like, oh, Natasha Rothwell's in it, and I'm like, I mean, that role could have gone to anyone. Like she doesn't get to do anything as the boss. And then the Rajiv guy as well. And like, that's it. That's all we got of like these very funny people, which again, I'm not saying they're comedians, give them funny things to do, but it's like, obviously you got them because you saw something in them.
Yeah.
And why not give them a role where that thing can happen?
Yeah. If there could be a payoff or something like that. Right. I absolutely agree. Yeah. Wasted talent in terms of casting there for sure.
And I mean, there was another point brought up that like, yeah, what was good about Wonder Woman, and
Like,
there's room for her to change, is like her personality, and like you basically get no personality from Diana Prince in this movie.
Yeah.
She like shuts fun down. She's like all like, and I'm just like, I don't know, man. Like the only like personality you get from is I want Steve. It's the one thing I've ever wanted. I'm like,
yeah.
oh boy, I hope that's not true. Like, I mean, I know that's what they wrote for you, but ugh.
Yeah. I hope that's not true, because like that's so stupid. Like, it's like, okay, you watched him die and you weren't aware that anything could bring him back. Because the thing is, if you were aware that something could bring him back, my expectation is that 66-year gap, you're looking for something to bring him back. You're looking for a way to do it. If it
I don't agree with that. I think that's very realistic to be like, if you love someone, to be like, I just wish I had more time with them. But
100%.
But I don't think but I just feel like, because we know that like even in Justice League, she's still kind of like, I wish I was with Steve. It's just a weird thing to be like, she really can't get over this guy. Like, there's no like, and even to the point of Gal Gadot being like, oh, she's bisexual. I'm like, what is the point of saying that if every time we see you, you're pining after Steve Rogers?
Yeah, there's no point in saying someone's bisexual if they're doing this kind of stuff. It just seems like one of those things where it's like, yeah, we have inclusion on screen. It's like, but there's no act of it. There's no point of you.
Like, I'm not saying like, oh, let's see her in a threesome. I'm saying like,
oh, absolutely,
her sexuality is irrelevant if
100%.
If her big thing is, I want Steve Rogers.
Yeah, 100%.
Steve Trevor.
Yeah, I agree with you. Her sexuality is completely irrelevant if it's about telling the story between Diana and Steve. Her sexuality is completely irrelevant. It's unless she's like, oh, she's met someone else, Steve has come back, and now she's conflicted. In which case, I would be like, fucking explore Polly. But then it's just the idea of like, her sexuality in this situation genuinely is irrelevant. So I hated the fact that they were like, oh yeah, she's bisexual. I'm like, no, you really had the chance to explore that kind of stuff on Themyscira. I mean,
a world she just doesn't even care about.
Exactly.
No, like, I guess.
Here's the thing. Okay, this is what I have an issue with the Wonder Woman thing and Steve Trevor. And you're right with the Themyscira thing. It's so important because she was raised in Themyscira, and in Wonder Woman 1, there was such an internal debate about her leaving because she would never be able to come back.
Mm-hmm.
And she made that choice. And now in this movie, she's completely okay with it. She's done the work, emotional labor, whatever. She's okay with not having her home anymore, not having the people she grew up with anymore, her, like, all those kind of things, her way of life. She's okay having that completely gone. But the Steve Trevor thing, no movement there, emotionally speaking. So it's a very difficult movie for me to stomach. And it's weird because they're like, no, it's not a sequel. It doesn't feel like a sequel because of this, but they're bringing back story elements for the first one to be like, no, but it is a sequel. We're reminding you of the first one. It doesn't make sense to me. It really doesn't.
Yeah, I get what they were trying to do. This is if you are looking at it as a comic book, it's just a side story, whatever type thing. But to your point, they're bringing back stuff from the first movie to remind you of like what you like about her, and then it doesn't get used effectively. I don't think. Like I still feel like it's such a bad decision to not have her wish to like see what's happening in Themyscira or like bring that into the world. Like, you can still do your fish out of water thing with like her mom or another like a new character that we didn't see in the first one, but like and then I don't know, like, if you have to bring Steve Trevor back, like maybe someone else wishes for that to throw her off her game. But like,
she's being manipulated by something. I would have loved if it was like the god of like mischief was actually the big bad of this whole movie, playing behind the scenes and all that kind of stuff, and like it was like and that it was the big bad trying to manipulate Diana and then allowed her to like see him but hallucinate him or something. I don't know. Like that would have been cooler. I genuinely hope they don't bring him back for the third one though. It's going to be such a
yeah. Well, I guess we forgot to say they did confirm that Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot are back for the third one.
For third,
I'm happy for them.
Pine.
I that's good. Sorry, what?
Chris Pine is the question. I'm like, don't bring him.
Yeah, no. Yeah, I know what you meant. I was just like, we forgot to mention that up top. But yeah, I
has been greenlit for a third. Yep.
I hope that they do stick to just putting her into modern day.
Yeah.
I don't know that you can go back to that well of like, oh, let's see what she did before Batman vs Superman, because it does limit. I feel like my feeling on Diana Prince in this movie is like she can't do anything. She's boxed in because we have to wait until 2016 for her to like be like, you know what? No, I'm back to who I used to be. Like she has to basically stay stagnant until then.
She's got to play it low under the radar, and there's no actual reason for her needing to do that, because out of this it could have been like, oh, I've been discovered, I have to go into hiding for like that would have been kind of cool to justify her coming back up in the Justice League or Batman versus Superman. But then one of the biggest issues in this movie is the fact that she learns to fly.
Oh, I don't think that's an issue at all.
I think it is. I think when you come to Batman versus Superman and that Diana Prince, you're like, well, why isn't she flying there?
It looked like she was flying to me.
Did it?
Being honest. Yeah.
Okay.
Nothing about this movie like contradicts anything. In fact, it's so like we can't do this or else it's gonna that you're like, oh, what was the point of doing this story then? For me, like every. Sure. I don't think it contradicts anything. I might be missing something, but I don't feel that anything about those other movies made it seem like, when you see her fly in this movie, it doesn't look like the most productive way of getting from place to place.
That's true.
So nothing about her appearance in those other movies made me like, why isn't she flying? Like, I feel like she does fly in Justice League. And she flies at the end of Wonder Woman. Like, that's her, like, when they flash forward, she like jumps out and like flies into action.
I thought she just jumps out of the window.
But it's like I don't know how.
I guess
fine if you want to just say she's gliding. It looks like she's flying. To me, that was already established.
To me, this is the funny thing that we have this discussion right now with flying, because in the beginning, Superman was never supposed to fly. He was only supposed to jump over buildings, and just kind of basically what we're seeing with what Superman's character progression is in the meta is basically what Wonder Woman is having now. Is like, well, was she flying or was she using the lasso of truth to grab onto a lightning bolt, swing, and then glide between that, and then just constantly do that back and forth, right? Like, whether or not that's a discussion. But to me, it's just like, I like that the ability to fly was tied back to what Steve Trevor said. It was like, that's the only thing that makes sense to me. It's like catching the wind. It's wind, it's air, it's nothing else. It's like, I like that she has that part of her tied back to Steve. I like that a lot. And then I also, one of the things I have to say about this movie that I thought was absolutely brilliant was the Easter egg for the invisible plane. Because to me, like, the invisible plane for Wonder Woman is definitely like a very, very important thing, but it's a goofy thing for this day and age. It's ridiculous for this day and age. So the idea like, oh, okay, she learned the same magic that her father used to conceal the island for the invisible plane was by far one of the coolest things I thought of this movie.
I liked that. That was good.
It was really, really cool. And I will say too, you're right to talk about Kristen Wiig. I think her job in this movie was absolutely phenomenal. She was one of those actresses where she was cast, and originally, like, I admit, like, it raised an eyebrow for me, but I could see where they were going with it, and the way they executed it with her was so good. Like you said, very physical performance, but also the wardrobe subtleties that changed with her were just absolutely fantastic. And that's not just me being like, oh, they put leopard print on her or cheetah print on her. That's just me being like, no, her, like, originally after she makes that wish, when she goes to the party, that dress is A, absolutely stunning, but B, in a way that it's a style that still invites people to be worn. You know what I mean? It's still a wardrobe choice that reflects I am social, like talk to me kind of thing, versus in the first fight between Barbara and Wonder Woman, where like her physical appearance being full on punk rock or whatever at that period of time is like, no, it's aggressive. It's like, no, we are like, we're putting up our like fundamental shift. Like huge ups to that department for nailing that aspect of it. Wonderful
I
stuff.
didn't even think about that, but yeah, that is really well done.
Yeah.
Again, it's visually you can get across a lot, but I don't like. Yeah, I just felt like I wish there was more time with her, or like it's not like I'm like, oh, I wish this movie was shorter. When I said like, oh, get rid of the Themyscira thing, it was so that you could put in more stuff.
Yeah.
That like.
But it's also
kind of
because
like,
it doesn't make sense. I mean, I like the fact it's like, oh, you didn't truly win because you would have cheated. I like that lesson of it all. That is, I guess, important to the whole Maxwell Lord side of things, because there is a callback to that later on when he's admitting everything to his son Alistair. So I do like the lesson there, but it could have been done in another way. Honestly, it could have been. But like, yeah, like as much as and you're right though, those games, the visuals were of Themyscira were better in the first one. These games were kind of cool. It just raises more of a question to me. I'm like, why are all those competitors okay with a little child competing with them? Like, what are the rules of this game? What's happening here?
Yeah. I mean, again, there's no time to explore something like that, but my brief context clues were kind of like, what do they care? They weren't taking her as a serious competitor anyway. And it seems like she had been doing it already. And maybe that is just a thing. As soon as you want to compete, you can.
Because the way
she was like, wait, this was my year to win, making it seem like she did it before. And she couldn't have been the first kid to do that.
Right. Because to me, what it looked like and what I thought was happening was like Diana snuck in and it started and it's too late to stop it. Like that's what I thought.
No, because all of her shit is set up.
Well, that's what I mean. It's just like that part. I was like, oh wait, like originally I was like, oh, she just like snuck into the competition. I'm like, but then I'm like, wait, she's got everything set up. There's gear specifically sized for her.
Mm-hmm.
No, they allowed that to happen. That is weird.
Yeah, I mean,
at the same time, in a world in an island where time stands still and no one ages, does that child thing?
Obviously they do age.
Well, they do age, but then they're like they have the awesome thing of like, hey, we've hit the peak of where we want to be from a warrior standpoint. We're going to stay this age. Like we hit peak muscle and bone density. We're going to stay this age to allow that to happen. Like that's cool, man. I wish that was a thing for us. But
yeah. I mean, the movie is overall to me missed potential.
Yeah.
And as we've pointed out, there's so many things where I'm just like, I don't know why they made it this complicated. Like the wishes, it's like only one wish, except for if you want another one, because then he can do that if you want. And then the Steve Trevor stuff.
More wishes? Well, I wish I could. Yeah, now you're screwed, genie.
Well, I mean, he did it first. He's like, I wish I was. So someone else could have been like, I wish I was the stone, I guess, and then he would have lost that power.
Yeah,
my assumption is, but like. But it also seems like he can grant, like it's up to him to grant stuff, or maybe it's not.
I don't think it's up to him. I just think the power.
Because the way it was working before was he needed to touch the person, and then he needed to say, "I have given you this, and now I'm taking this." And then he found the broadcasting thing.
Oh yeah, the particle physics thing. That was weird.
So it is that he needs to
physically touch someone.
I don't know, man. Anyway,
that makes sense, because if he is the stone didn't have the power to touch other people to grant wishes. Right?
No,
it had to touch it and then read the Latin, I think, and then be able to do whatever. But yeah, it was.
It just seemed overcomplicated, and then like there's elements of both villains' performances that I like. I just feel like fundamentally they seemed so unimposing because they're just it is the Superman problem. Like they got their own thing going on.
Yep.
It's a little bit more tied in because Diana knows Cheetah, but like I don't like I guess, yeah, they just kind of made her like, oh, and Cheetah fights her because she doesn't want to lose her powers. And it's like, it, I, in the comics, there's such a history between the two of them. Like, they
Yep.
genuinely, like, you can do it that it's Diana's fault that she turned into Cheetah. And then and so there's her guilt and then the animosity coming from Cheetah. There's other ones where it's just like, oh, I just wish I could turn her back. And like, they're so connected and it's such a rich history that to make it just like, oh no, she just was like, no, because if you win then I lose my powers. It's like, oh, all right, I guess. Like,
the thing that is really weird to me about that fight, just the Barbara stuff, is like why she gets mad at Diana in the first place. You know what I mean? It's the idea of like Diana's been okay, aside from Diana not responding to Barbara for an invitation to lunch, she's been not mean to her or whatever. And it's not like Diana is in a position where she's like acting extremely entitled and privileged and forcing other people to deal with her shit, especially her, like all this kind of stuff. Where does that conflict between them come from? Aside from the fact that Barbara realizes like, oh, you're Wonder Woman. I have all these crazy powers and this feels great. Like, it wasn't like the character of Barbara in the beginning, or at least I don't remember this, was like really, really, well, she did have that admiration, but of Diana and how beautiful she is and how like all this kind of stuff. But she never really had this kind of progression where she was trying to be like Diana before the stone. You know what I mean? And that part to me was, or like being like Diana and failing at it or whatever. Like, it's just a weird conflict of like, oh, like now, like I'll take this from you because you've had so much and we've had so little. Now it's time to like switch that narrative. It was a weird thing to do. I don't know. What do you think about it?
I just said what I think. I didn't think that's what was happening. I thought she was just like, oh, I'm just against you because you're going to take away my powers.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah. I don't think that's good. I'm saying that was weird. I feel like there's so much that they could have done. Yeah. But they just made it, yes, in the moment she says the stuff you said, but it's because it's out of a thing of like, no, fuck you. Why do you think you can just take this away from me?
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
There is no real animosity, and part of the problem is because she's losing her humanity, so there isn't any real connection to anything other than
I guess that's what's bothering me more than anything else. What do you think of the open-ended Cheetah reversion?
Is it open-ended? I don't know.
A little bit. Patty Jenkins definitely said like, "Oh, there's a reason why I did that."
What did she do? I don't remember.
It was a little open-ended. I don't think you see Kristen Wiig revert back into Barbara.
Oh.
I think that's
sure. Like, I mean, again, as I said, in the comics, like, it's a big deal. Cheetah versus Wonder Woman. That's a thing. So yeah.
Basically, it's her top foe. And it's even bigger thing because like in some newer versions, like they actually team up on a couple of things together out of necessity, don't they?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't read, but I'm sure that's happened.
Well, that's what Comic Book Brain said.
Yeah, I'm sure that's happened. But like, I don't like, I don't care about the Cheetah they have in this movie, so I was just kind of like, oh, okay.
It like the Cheetah that they have in this movie, which is unfortunate because I love Kristen Wiig in it. I wish they wrote it better because
it's not the fault of Kristen Wiig that I don't like Cheetah. It's the movie isn't giving enough of it for me to like, because she just becomes this henchman for Max Lord, which is fine, but that should happen way earlier in the movie then.
I agree. It's the same situation as
because then you can do the whole like, oh no, now I'm fighting to get Barbara back. Like I hope she's still in there. None of that happens. It's just oh, fuck you, Barbara. You turned into a full Cheetah for reasons that I don't think anyone can properly explain why she turned into a cheetah based on what she said.
In Apex Predator, she was wearing cheetah print. That I'm just gonna take that logic.
No, that's what I'm saying is like it's like what? Like,
you're right.
I get it. Like, obviously, if you're watching the movie, and that's why they have to put her as Cheetah in the trailers, so that everyone can just be like, when is she gonna fucking turn into the cheetah? Like it's whatever. But it is kind of like this movie puts so much effort into this wish stone just to be like, and then she turns into the cheetah. You get the idea. It's not something she out and out said. It's not something like, and I get that they already set the precedent of Diana just wishing something in her head and then it happens. But I can't imagine Kristen Wiig was like, I hope I look like a cheetah on two legs.
Right.
I'm sure she wanted to still look like Wonder Woman.
So, yeah, that's true. I just pulled up the Wikipedia page for Cheetah, and this is so problematic. Oh God, she was created quote. She was created by William Moulton Marston as an allegory of the folly of abnormal emotions such as jealousy, as well as to be another embodiment of what he called, quote, less actively developed women. That sucks, man.
To be fair, there's like 3 versions of Cheetah. This Barbara Minerva one is like the third one.
Priscilla Rich, Deborah Domain, Barbara Ann Minerva, and Sebastian Ballerostos.
Yeah, so I don't know what they wanted to do with this one. I just know that there's better stuff they could have done with her. Right. And then for Max Lord, the businessman thing didn't really work for me because I'm like, he's not good. Like, it's not even like anyone has bought into him. So I don't get how he's this like celebrity. Like, at least with like Trump, you could be like, he comes from a name. There's other things. Like, this guy's just a nobody that bought airtime, and somehow people like let them into his house, like, or like into their business. It's weird. And we're like, did he have money? I guess he just ran out of money.
Yeah.
Because he had that initial investment and he spent all the money.
They had multiple investors, and so he probably had.
So but it just like, I just feel like it makes more sense if he's like this religious leader, and that's how he's doing what he's doing, and it is an actual rags to riches. Like they are like this one was this weird thing where they overcomplicate it by being like, but he is shit. Like, he's not actually good, and it's like, oh. Because I don't think that's how Maxwell Lord works in the comics, but okay. Because like in the comics, he funds the Justice League, and like he's good at what he does.
Yeah,
and it's that he's like, maybe he's like, an accident happens to him and he's all fucked up and he's vain about it. But this one was like, oh, like it looks like he's fucked up, and I never get the sense there's any like progression of him getting better. Like, he's bleeding and stuff, and I'm like, I get it. He's wishing for things, and he'll take the lungs from this person, and it's just like. It all seems like just lip service. It doesn't seem like I'm like.
Oh no! I thought the makeup showing his like physical deterioration.
Right, but he just always looks like he's deteriorating. Like, it didn't look like it was working. Like that's what I'm saying.
Every wish they did make, like they made a point of like, like rejuvenating him and all that.
But it looked like it was for a second.
Yes, it was only done for a second, and then immediately went back.
And I get that. That's because he's taking on more wishes, but it's just this weird thing of like, oh, like in the comics I know he can like go down to a skeleton, but they never went that far, and then they're just in this limbo, and everything feels like it's in this limbo.
Right. Yeah, that's weird, because you're right. If there was more of a like, he was more jauntly and sickly, and then like the wish like brought him back to full Maxwell, that would have been really cool, man. Kind of like how the Vulture in the
cartoons,
from the cartoons in the comics is like an old,
and then you have like a showdown.
Yeah, and then you have a young kid. Yeah, it's great.
But whatever. I guess that's it. We didn't. Oh, I mean, I feel safe saying both of us didn't really like it, but.
Oh yeah, you're very, very safe.
We should rate it.
Yeah. Whew. Am I going first?
Go for it.
The 4.
I give it a 5.
Yeah.
I was at a 6. I think that I don't know why I'm giving it a 5. I feel like there was stuff I enjoyed, namely the invisible plane. I thought that Chris Pine did a good job in a movie he shouldn't have been in.
Correct.
So all of that worked for me. It didn't even have like, I know that that's commonplace, but like the energy that Blue Monday song had in the trailer and like the way they did it never gets replicated in the music in this movie either. It's all so flat and I like the Hans Zimmer score. I'm sure if I listen to it on its own, it'll be good. But
You pointed out something about the Hans Zimmer score too.
Oh yeah, that thing.
Yeah, you noticed. I don't think I noticed it because
no one else has brought it up, so maybe I'm wrong. But it is the theme. Like, hold on, let me look this up because everyone's talking about this song called Adagio 9, and it was in the movie Sunshine, and that's in it when she renounces her wish.
Okay,
but I was listening to when she's like with him in the studio and she's like, why are you doing this? And she's trying to convince Maxwell Lord to stop being a dick. And the name of the song is The Beautiful Lie. It's what opens up Batman vs. Superman. It's also in Suicide Squad when Deadshot is taking out all of the bad guys on the hood of the police car. To me, that is a meta moment of like, in the comics, Deadshot becomes Batman. So play the Batman theme now, I guess. Yeah. This one, I'm like, well, she doesn't know Batman yet. There's no way Wonder Woman needs to become Batman. She is her own hero in her own right. Why are they playing this Batman theme during a Wonder Woman like high point? Like, it's supposed to be this moment where like she's finding her courage, unless they're saying, this is just, again, it's called The Beautiful Lie. Maybe someone thought like, oh, because he's a liar. But like, it's just like, it's a weird time to bring in that theme. Unless they really are just, it's connecting the whole universe. And I'm like, I don't know. I feel like it's the Batman theme.
Yeah, there should be a different theme, like the Avengers theme or something like that, where it's like more generic. But
yeah, it's called The Beautiful Lie. You probably can hear it in multiple versions, but that if you look up the Batman v Superman soundtrack, it's that piano thing. I don't want to do it on air, like who knows what kind of like, I feel like this would be the time that we get stricken for something, so I'm not gonna do it, but it's called The Beautiful Lie. You can look it up, or not just Beautiful Lie. You'll recognize it when you hear it, and it happens in Wonder Woman 1984 for a reason I don't understand. But yeah, that was also distracting to me, but obviously not to anyone else. Just because I'm like, what purpose does this have? Like in the Justice League movie, whenever they used stuff from other scores, it was like, because this is the Superman theme or this is the Batman theme. Like, I get it. This was like, oh, this is just someone else's theme that they're throwing in there. Yeah, it's not even her theme from Batman vs. Superman. It's just Batman's theme.
Yeah.
So weird. Anyway. I
Very.
did not like I just didn't like the energy of the movie, and I hope for better in the third one.
Yeah, genuinely hope for better, and just genuinely hope that they just put Diana in like current day. Like,
yeah, I think we did the experiment of what happens beforehand.
Stop treating it like a period piece. It's not gonna age well. From that,
I mean, this was the 80s, so yeah, it's time to just be like, put her in present day.
Sure. Yeah. One thing I also will say, not that I doubt that this is going to go anywhere, but I loved that they got a Linda Carter cameo.
Oh yeah, we should have brought that up earlier.
Yeah,
sure.
That was so much fun to me. So much fun.
That's fine.
I doubt it's going to be carried up. I don't think Diana and Linda Carter are ever going to team up like in Wonder Woman 3. I think that would be terrible. It would just not be good. I want it to be a nice wink.
I would like them to team up because then it would be a connection back to Themyscira and we can actually get something out of that rich thing.
Actually, you're good. That's a good point. That's actually a very good point.
I would love for her to have some kind of connection back to that.
Yeah,
by the way, I wanted to say, so the comedians they were speaking about, or at least in my opinion, it was Ravi Patel. That was the other guy and Natasha Rothwell. I know I said her name already, but those were two people that I'm like, I didn't know Ravi Patel was in it, but seeing him, I'm like, oh, I know that guy. He made quite the impression on me in other comedic things. And I remember them saying Natasha Rothwell was in it, and she wasn't in the trailers. So I'm thinking, oh, she must have like a sick part if they're not like putting her in the trailers. And yeah, the kid's name is Lucien Perez.
Yes.
So I just wanted to say that, like, and as I look at him here, there is a good chance he's not Asian. As
Really?
I look at his IMDb pictures, I don't know that it is 100% he has to be Asian based on his picture on IMDb.
Interesting.
I'm not saying he isn't. I'm just saying, like, there's a big diaspora of people that are part of the Latin community, and some of them may look more Asian than others.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting. Definitely still pulled me out of it, though. There was not a lot of effort.
Don't get me wrong. As I said, that was a big part of me being like, well, time to look at my phone to see. Yeah. And I didn't want to look at my phone because I paid for this. I paid the $30, so I was like, no, I got to be paying attention. And then right away I was like, that's his kid. I gotta figure out who this is.
Yeah, it just pulled me out real fast out of that.
All right, 4 for you, 5 for me.
Yep, I'm not backing down on that 4.
No, I don't even know. I'll stick with a 5. I think I rated it higher ahead of this, and then we've talked about enough things for me to can't. Yeah, I had it at a 6 before.
Yeah, I definitely had this at a in my mind as a 6, but then as the more stuff you brought up, and I'm like, yeah, this is a problem. This movie's just not good.
Yeah,
honestly, that we're just gonna body snatch the single man as if he wasn't important, and like that stuff just like bothered me so much. It really did. I didn't like it.
Yeah, there is many reasons not to like this movie.
Yeah.
That is a good one. The treatment of Muslim people is another one.
100%.
And then also, if you're a fan of good storytelling,
yep,
you might not like this movie.
If you're a fan of good storytelling,
I think. Yeah, like as I said, like I don't think that anyone did a bad job of acting. Like of the main cast, there's I can't really get my head around that heist scene and the way people were acting in that. But I get what they were going for that. It just doesn't work for me. But I think it really does come down to decisions made. And as I said, I saw Jeff Johns as a writer on this, and I was like, this guy's history is the Green Lantern movie.
Yep.
And like, don't get me wrong, he's even done good things with Steve Trevor and Wonder Woman in the comics. So the fact that he was okay with this, I don't get where his brain goes when it comes to movies versus comics. I don't
maybe it's just one of those people like J.K. Rowling that just isn't a good screenwriter but can write otherwise.
Yeah, maybe if I cared more about Harry Potter, I would agree with that. But I was like, I don't mind those. They're not great, but I don't mind the Beast movies. But yeah, you're probably right. Maybe there's a
disconnect on. Writing a screenplay and writing a book are two fundamentally different things. They really are.
I'm still thinking about storytelling. So like the mistakes you made, like there's one thing if people are like, this seemed bloated, or it seemed like you just rushed the ending. But like a storytelling thing of like, do you see how it's an issue if she's still hung up on Steve Trevor? That's kind of universal.
Yeah.
I think, yes, there are mechanics to screenwriting and film, but I think there's also universal things like, this will be a bad idea if you try to like play this out. But yeah, anyway, that's Wonder Woman. I think the next episode will be going back to our revisiting older things. Classic. I don't remember what's next, but that will be the next episode. Then when WandaVision is over, we will do a full WandaVision episode.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you very much for listening. As Ben said, we're part of the That Shelf Podcast Network. That means that we are on the same site as great podcasts like Bad Gay Movies, Black Hole Films, Changing Reels, Composers, No Budget Nightmare, What a Great Theme Song, and more. So please head on over there and you can listen to those and listen to ours. You can also find older episodes of our podcast on tdfeverything.com/spoiledrotten. Our Twitter is @tdfspoiled. Our email is spoiledpodcast@gmail.com. We are on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Radio Public, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, and more. So you have some options for going to rate, review, and subscribe. And please share with your friends and let us know what you thought of the movie, and let your friends know what we thought about the movie, and get in touch with us the way I said to, or a new way that maybe I didn't think of.
Yeah, you could send out a force beacon.
Yep.
I'll be.
That's a thing. That's a nice callback to Mandalorian. All right. Bye-bye, everybody.
Cheers.
This has been a TDF Everything production, brah.